Sami. I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at Jane. I'm so excited. I joined in May and it's been such a lovely company. I am based in San Francisco Bay Area here in California. So not in Vancouver where a lot of our team members are. And the reason why I joined Jane is because I was really relating deeply to the mission of helping the helpers. So it's so nice to meet everybody here today and get to know you all. And joining us from Washington State in the United States is Kendall. Kendall is a mental health therapist. She's also the owner of Vancouver Wellness Studio, a multidiscipline clinic that opened back in 2016. So hi, Kendall, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. And some of you may know Kendall already because we've had some great features of her on our blog recently. And she's also done a coffee chat with our co-founder, Ali, last year. So if you guys want to pop into her content and review that later and get to know her a little bit better, that would be great. And yeah, Kendall, learning about you is so interesting. I heard that your own health journey led you to realize that our healthcare system is broken. And could you share a little bit about that? That'd be great.
Sure, it's true. I've shared about this a bit, and I talked to Ali about it in the coffee chat. But I do like to share because I think it's a very common experience for healthcare providers, mental health counselors, all of us that go into helping professions. We do that for a reason. And so I do have a chronic illness. I have MS. I've lived with it for 15 plus years. And my experience early on with MS led me to just be more aware of our medical system here in the US and realize that while our system is built amazingly for emergency, it's not quite built for preventative care, for chronic illness care, and there was really a mental health component from my care as well. So I started to dream up this place that didn't exist, that provided truly collaborative care to anyone who needed it, but specifically to people dealing with chronic illnesses, and that they could come really work with a truly collaborative team who is coordinating their care, speaking about, how to move them towards their health goals and really taking away some of those barriers. So that vision became Vancouver Wellness Studio, and we opened in 2016. And we are here in Vancouver, Washington State.
Right. Or not in Canada, right?
We're not in Canada. And yeah, it's just been a beautiful experience and has led me, we are creating a second location, which we'll talk about a little bit, and has led me to expand into wellness center creators, where I support other health business owners who are expanding to multidisciplinary teams or wellness centers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And your second clinic is just not the same replica of what you have right now, right? It's different.
It's different. So it's very nearby. Our current clinic is very much healthcare. We have multidisciplinary team. We also have a movement space here, very focused on healthcare. Our second location is going to be an integrative medicine take on a spa, and it's connected to a hotel. So it will be a more spa experience, but underneath it, we'll still be giving people the healthcare, that deeper healthcare experience as well.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. Congratulations on your expansion. And I see that, so many healthcare clinics are expanding into having like very relevant services with them. And it's so convenient for the patient too. So I think it's going to be appreciated by a lot of your patients. Great. Well, we have not to take too much time, but we have a great presentation by Kendall. So I'm going to have her take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see slides at this point. Sami, can you see the slides?
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. So we're going to talk about developing collaborative leadership teams and what that looks like in the healthcare space. And if I'd love in the chat too, you're already introducing yourselves. And if you could share, what phase you're in. Are you in a scaling phase? Do you have a tiny team? Are you looking to bring some leaders onto your team? Are you expanding to multiple locations? So go ahead and pop that in the chat as well. So why are we here? Oftentimes the problem in our business can be as owners that we're still wearing all the hats. You know, we're helping professionals, we create a clinic or we create a group practice, and we end up kind of doing all the roles, and that's very common. So maybe you're still wearing all the hats and that's feeling like too much. When our teams start to get bigger and our systems are still built for a small team, sometimes things can start falling through the cracks. You might be noticing patterns of low retention, low morale on your team, especially the past couple of years. Onboarding might be confusing for your providers. Your team might not know the true message of your business, even though it's clear to you. You might be surprised when an employee leaves. It might feel like, oh my, that was out of the blue. I had no idea they were going to leave, right? You might be just confused about how to create opportunities for promotion, raises, growth. Like, how would a small business even afford those things, or what systems need to be in place? You might be starting to feel burdened by your team rather than inspired at times, which is not what you set out to do when you created your business. And it might feel like you're the only one with all of the answers, and everyone comes to you for those answers because you created the business, right? So when we continue to grow and we're adding more providers, we're adding disciplines without developing a leadership team, these experiences, of course, will get worse. And in the end, we won't create the wellness business, wellness center, clinic that we set out to create. And our providers won't feel supported, and they won't stay long-term, right? So there is, of course, hope, and that is why we're here. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So what to expect today? First off, this is really just an overview about leadership teams and how to do that. We'll work with the time we have today, but we're going to talk about what a leadership team even looks like in the wellness space, what makes an effective team and leader. We'll talk through some typical leadership positions and salaries. I get that question often. What would I even pay that person? How would I even afford that person? We're going to talk about steps to recruit, develop, and retain your leaders, how to guide and nurture your leadership team. We'll talk through some potential roadblocks. And please put your questions in the chat throughout. I will answer as many as possible at the end of the session, and then there will be a place after the session that everyone can go to where I'll answer the rest of the questions. Okay, I'd love to start with a visualization. If any of you have ever been to any of my workshops or webinars, you know that I typically like to have experiential components. So of course, participate in whatever way feels good to you today. So I'd like to invite everyone to find a comfortable position, eyes closed if that feels good to you, or a soft gaze, which means just looking at the floor in front of you or the desk in front of you, just kind of settling into your seat. And start with your breath. Just inhaling and exhaling through your nose. Allowing your body to relax into your seat. Just breathing. I invite you to bring to mind your current business. Visualize who works with you. Picture the flow of things. Picture your current systems, the day-to-day. Bring that to mind as vividly as possible. Notice how you feel in your body. Notice how your work life currently contributes to or impacts your home life. And notice how you feel in your body. Continuing to breathe. Now bring to mind your business with more support, whatever that means to you. It might be one additional support person on your team. It might be a robust leadership team of 10 people or more. What does that mean to you to have more support in the way that you need at this time? Notice what it would change for you personally and for your business. What else would you be able to spend time and energy on that fills you up if you had this different version of your business? And notice how your body feels. And take a deep breath. And just take a snapshot of that vision in your mind, knowing you can come back anytime you need. And taking a deep breath, slowly opening your eyes, coming back to the presentation, moving, stretching if you need, and taking a moment to jot down some notes, anything that feels important from that exercise, anything you want to remember. Okay. So let's jump in. What is a leadership team in the health and wellness environment? So I see a leadership team as a group of team members who support the people, processes, products, which would include services and positioning of your business. So some typical and potential leadership positions in the wellness space, and there's salaries next to it. This is going to vary depending on where you're located, but it's a range and it gives you an idea. So we'll list these out and we'll talk in a minute about what some of their roles and responsibilities might be. And then there's also a PDF that will be shared that lists in great detail roles and responsibilities of a potential leadership team in the wellness space. So intake coordinators, client care coordinator, clinic director or coordinator, medical director, office manager, marketing coordinator, and executive assistant would be some options. So an intake coordinator, briefly, many of you might already have one or you know what that is. It's someone that is in charge of screening new patient calls, doing potentially a full first intake, and getting that patient or client to the correct provider. Client care coordinator could be a lot of things, but it's someone who would be dedicated to making sure clients and patients are having a great experience. Clinic director, coordinator, oftentimes clinic director is the owner, coordinating all the day-to-day. Medical director, if you have medical services in your clinic, a medical director is often essential to that practice, and they are in charge of making sure from a liability standpoint that everything is being done properly medically. Marketing coordinator would be self-explanatory. Executive assistant also can do a variety of tasks. So one thing that I love to encourage small businesses in the wellness space is to think about hybrid positions. And it's one way to afford these positions. So if you have a really great provider on your team and they're moving more into a mentorship or supervisory position for newer clinicians, they would be a great option to kind of take on a leadership role, but also still see clients. And it's a way to have a revenue producing position and also have them in a leadership role. And again, we will share a PDF of, it's called Who Does What, and it goes into great detail about those roles. Okay, so what makes an effective leader? So I would like to invite you, if you have a pen and paper or something you can do later. I like to do this exercise when I'm bringing on a brand new position or we're going to hire, but to just think about like visually, what does an effective leader mean to you on your team? So it might, be an image of a person with like really large ears, right? And really big eyes because they're listening and they're watching and they're vigilant, but they're not talking so much, but they speak up when they need to, those sorts of things. It might seem a little silly, but I think it's a valuable exercise. So what makes an effective leader? Coach and guide versus manager. So manager is not a bad word. I like to encourage a coaching perspective for leaders on healthcare teams. And what that means is that we're kind of shifting our mindset to come from a coaching guiding place versus like a managerial top-down place. And so there are 7 coaching questions that I'd love to share with you. I'm going to put them in the chat.
Kendall, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I know there are some people who are a little bit anxious to get to the questions before you move on. Was it okay if I just pop in a few questions that we're seeing on some of your slides?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. We have a few in your slide before, and people are asking if these suggested salaries are in the United States or Canadian.
Those would be in the United States.
Okay, and the incomes are what are these incomes based on? For example, are they based on living or lower or mixed cost of living in these areas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like I said earlier, it's going to vary depending on where you live, even within the United States. So this would be, I'm in Washington State, and this is our experience here in Vancouver, Washington area. So you would absolutely adapt that to comparable salaries in your area for these positions.
So market rates, depending on your geography. Okay, that totally makes sense. We'll take, for the attendees, we're going to take some of the more overall overview questions at the end of the session. So we can make sure that Kendall has time to present everything. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so I did put these 7 coaching questions in the chat. For sake of time, I'll have you just read through those on your own, but you can use these questions in any meeting with any employee, and it's they're great questions to share with your leaders on your team for them to use in any meeting with any employee. And it's a way to open a meeting where even if you have an agenda in your mind or your leader has an agenda in their mind, it allows the person you're meeting with to bring what they really need to bring to the table. So we can talk more about that later. Okay, effective leaders absolutely need to have intentional and effective collaboration and communication. This goes into being able to have effective meetings and efficient meetings, and at the same time, leaving time and space to have no agenda, right? To let creative ideas flow and the organic process flow. Also, that they provide opportunities for employees to be heard and share their ideas. It seems common sense, but it's really, really important to be intentional about that. Effective leaders also cultivate the culture and model of the business, which comes down to making sure they understand that when they are put in that position, and that they're really coming back to the core values of the business. Effective leaders develop and maintain effective systems. Let's see. Next. And create and maintain intentional opportunities for kudos and gratitude. So this one's super important. And so there's room here for structured kudos and gratitude systems in your business, and also just modeling organically, right? So we have, we meet every single week as our healthcare team, and we have a structure for each one of the weeks of the month. And one of those weeks we we have a high five program. So throughout the month, people are filling out sheets of paper that they circle which core value is their colleague exemplifying, and giving them a high five. And then it's very specific, right? It can't be, oh, you know, Susie, you're just so kind, right? And that's great. Susie is kind, but the high five is very specific. Like, thank you so much, Susie, for how you assisted me with that client situation. And then the client gave good feedback and da, 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 right? So specific opportunities. Okay. Oh, and then definitely that there's a process in place for complaints and change of management and evaluation of management, right? If we're going to put leaders on our team, we also have to have systems to evaluate them. And then I did want to share this blog. If you don't know about the Lighthouse blog yet, it's just a great resource. But this one talks about good leaders versus bad leaders is the blog. And it's right there in the chat. All right, so how to recruit, develop, and retain your leaders. We're going to talk about hiring internally versus externally, interviewing, onboarding, and integration, and potential roadblocks. So hiring internally. Of course, it would be so lovely if we could start here in some of these situations. It's an opportunity to develop your current team, right? People that have been loyal to your company. And the way to do this is look for heroes in the making and find out their story. So sometimes we see leaders emerging on our team, right? People listen when they talk, they become mentors to other team members. And we might think they would be an amazing leader, right? They would be great for this new leadership position. But when we go talk to them, they have no interest in leading a group of people. They would like to stay more in that mentor place, but they don't actually want the responsibility of leading a group. So it's really important to understand what that team member's story is and what their personal goals are. So what is it that they really want? And we get that information by talking to them, having meetings with them, interviewing them, asking them, you know, in 5 years with this company, like, what is your ideal situation, right? And you'll find, you'll get more information and details from that than, you know, just waiting for that like formal review every year, right? So hiring internally is an opportunity to hire someone who's already has loyalty and trust with your company, and you're a bit ahead of the game with, you know, training and onboarding, and they already understand, you know, what's going on with the company. Externally, so if you're going to hire externally, really want to understand your team's key characteristics and look for those. Absolutely including your core values of your business in your job postings and throughout onboarding, interview process, everything. I do recommend a multi-step interview process, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We want to make sure we're integrating anyone we're hiring from the outside, integrate them into the culture of the business, and welcoming their own new ideas. Okay, interviewing. So if it's a current team member that you're interviewing potentially for a leadership position, again, we want to find out their hero journey. And what that means is, you know, when they see themselves as really succeeding in the company, what does that mean? Because that's a different story than you might have of them succeeding in the company. Job postings. I'm a believer, we want these to be specific and detailed. Put it all out there. We don't need to waste time with, being vague in a job posting. If someone's not a fit or the salary doesn't work for them, whatever it is, we can move on to the person that it is a fit for. And then incorporating the company mission, vision, and those top 3 values that we talked about. So let's say you're starting to interview for your leadership team. How do you recognize natural leaders so you can hire them? So these are people who really step up to challenges and have boundaries. So if you're kind of looking at your current team and trying to figure out who's a leader, or you're interviewing from the outside, these are the things you're looking for. So if we take, the last 2 years of the pandemic, for example, with your current team, the person and people that were stepping up to the challenge and that were setting boundaries, right? You can see that the pandemic has really highlighted that. These leaders can hold attention of a room or a space for a period of time, right? When they talk, people listen in a good way, right? They're commanding the space and people trust what they're saying. People look to them as problem solvers. Again, throughout the pandemic, this is something you really can see shining through. They have the ability to support others and to feel grounded in the midst of chaos. Again, pandemic. They give helpful ideas without fueling the fire, right? If someone's in a leadership position, they're going to be dealing with sometimes hard issues with team members. And they have to be able to, to be in that space and not, contribute to gossip and things like that. They give helpful ideas. Yes, we already talked about that. They have empathy and authority. So most of us know what empathy means. Authority would be, your team sees them as an expert, right, in their position. But they're also coming from that coaching and guiding place and having empathy with whoever they're working with or supervising. And then I did just want to talk about mentors versus leaders. So mentors have empathy one-to-one, right? One-on-one. And they might come into that position where they're advice giving or they're, listening to another colleague. Leaders are people who really want to lead a group of people, right? They really want to lead a team, and that's different. And so it's really important to look for that when you're looking to hire in these positions. So onboarding and integration, once you find those leaders. So with an internal hire, it is an opportunity to sort of create that role together sometimes, right? In a small business, if this is our first time creating a leadership team, these are completely new positions. So we might feel like, what is that role even going to be in our business? So you can have the opportunity to create that together if it's someone who's already been on your team. If you're hiring externally, it's important to try to get as clear as possible on the role and create clear training so that person is not confused when they start in the role. And there's still opportunity to create it together as long as they understand what they're coming into, right? So integration to the team, include your whole team in the process. This is something that I'm very big believer in. If anyone's ever worked with me, collaboration is key, effective collaboration is key, and in bringing your team into the process. Especially if you're going to bring on a new leader to the team, they should be part of choosing that. So orienting that person to the current culture of the team and business, finding ways to build trust, and of course, integrating the new hires' ideas and processes at the same time. So some potential roadblocks. Confusion. If you confuse, you'll lose. It's one of my favorite phrases. This is very, very true. So when we're hiring anyone to our team, in particular leaders, we just want to have clarity. this comes down to, systems and communication of expectations. The biggest thing is people want to know what to expect, even if it's going to be a process where they're creating the position with you, or it's a little clunky in the beginning, making sure they understand that that's going to be the process. So another roadblock would be assumptions about the new hire, especially when you're a small business. There can be a tight-knit group, and if you're hiring from within, there can be assumptions about that person. Why did they get the job and I didn't? All of those things. If you're bringing on a leader externally, you have a group of people that is close-knit already, and then someone that doesn't quite know the group yet. Past baggage. So we all have past baggage. And every single person involved in this process. So from a mental health perspective, from a trauma perspective, when we bring someone new to a group, and we'll talk about Tuckman's stages of group development also in a second, it changes the dynamic of the group at the stage the group is in. So if you're wondering why a person is behaving a certain way when you bring a new leader on, excuse me, it's important to remember, let's pause and consider what past experiences are informing that person's behavior, right? Why do they feel threatened by the new leader? Why are they behaving that way? And it doesn't excuse, unprofessional behavior, but it's a helpful mindset to step back and, instead of thinking, what's wrong with that person? Why are they so upset about it? Stepping back and think, well, what happened to them? Why would that be? What happened in their past workplaces? Why are they, upset about this? So another roadblock would be gaps in your systems. So adding new positions to your team will always shine light to any gaps in your systems of your business. And then Tuckman stages of group development. So this is a well-known psychological theory, and it talks about, any type of group goes through stages of formation and growing together. And so whenever you add someone or someone leaves the team, this changes to a different stage. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, and this is just a great resource to learn more about the stages and why your group might be in the stage that they're in. There's that. Okay, so how to guide and nurture your leaders. So leaders in place versus leaders in charge. This is a cool concept. There's a book, it's called Making Money is Killing Your Business by Chuck Blakeman. And he talks about leaders in place versus leaders in charge. And this concept is about when you bring on leaders to your team, are you staying present as the business owner and guiding your leaders versus phasing out of the business and putting a leader in charge of the business? And he basically says one isn't better than the other, but you have to go through the leaders in place phase if you want the leaders in charge phase to go well, right? Anyway, I do recommend that book. So coach versus manager, we talked about this earlier. It's a mindset shift. And also it's important to know, sometimes we need managers on our team and coaches on our team in leadership positions. If someone's doing an HR type role, they're going to be more managerial. So walking the walk. I always encourage people to have a coach of your own, a mentor of your own. Do the things that you ask of your team consistently, right? Make space in your workflow to meet with your leaders, to support your leaders. The meeting flow we have here in our clinic, we meet every week with the leadership team in addition to our entire staff of 15. And even if the goal is to exit your business, that phase is just very important. And then I would also recommend for meeting flow that have a leader on your team, meet with new employees, even in addition to onboarding, right? That there's an additional meeting very early on in the process when they join to do that more casual interview style check-in. And those meetings gather vital information. And we've learned information that basically changes the trajectory of an employee on our team for the better most of the time. And so those are just very important. Okay, what to do next? And then we're going to get to some questions. So, and we have a good amount of time.
Awesome. That's great.
So there, through the Wellness Center Creators website, you can become a member for free. So this is where there's a private Q&A through the website and the membership, where if we don't get to your question today, I will answer it on the private Q&A. So head to the website and your questions will be answered there. The link's here, and you will get the PDFs of the slides. So you can just click the link. If you are interested in individual coaching, business coaching for the fall, you can email me for more information. And then the next coaching group I'm going to do is going to be in spring 2023, typically starts in March. So if you're interested, it's a 12-week coaching group, usually limited to 6 to 7 people. So you can apply for that group. And then again, it says to put your email in the chat to receive the Who Does What PDF, but I think we're going to just share that with everyone, we decided. So that'll be coming your way. And then, so before we get to questions, I'd love to invite everyone to put in the chat 3 things. So something you liked about the time together today, something you learned, and lastly, something you'll do in the next 10 days based on what you learned today. So something you liked, something you learned, and something you'll do. Wonderful. Okay. And we can get to questions. Masami, should I come out of the screen?
Yeah, let's do that. We should come out, and then Madison from your team is going to start popping in the questions that we had. Okay. We're just letting people put the information that you asked for in the chat, but she's going to start to populate it. Okay. Wow, that's great. Quote, like the quote, confuse, you lose. That's a great quote.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Should I just start reading some of these off, or is Madison?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
Okay.
do that. People can add more too, but yeah, let's go.
Okay. What kinds of things do we talk about in our team meeting? So we have a leadership team meeting weekly, and then we have a staff-wide meeting weekly. We're a multidisciplinary collaborative team. So we'll start with the team-wide meeting. We look at it as it's every Wednesday, 4 Wednesdays in a month. Sometimes there's 5. So week 1, we focus on case coordination, client care. So any clients or patients we have on our team that are seeing 3 or more providers on our team, we focus on them and we coordinate their care with their permission. And that's the focus of that meeting. Second week of the month is marketing focus. And so we'll have marketing updates, marketing wins, collaboration ideas, networking ideas, things like that, focusing on promotions, events, whatever we're doing. Third week of the month is in service. So we have a provider from our team presents on something they're passionate about, so the team can learn more about how they work. And we also have CEUs approved for those in services for our team members. Fourth week of the month is personal and professional support. So we do longer check-ins, everyone shares wins, we support each other if anyone has a really tricky case or difficult case, we'll support them. And then we'll do other odds and ends. Every week, we work in some level of case coordination for clients, and like personal check-ins or business win check-ins for our team. But those are the focuses throughout the month. For the leadership team, it's sort of a condensed version of that. We share every week, we share highlights, forecasts, and roadblocks, essentially.
That's great. That's great. It's so structured. I bet this is really helpful to a lot of people. That's great. We also have some questions. I'm going to go back to the beginning
Sure.
of your presentation. So somebody is beginning to explore a new home-based business. Where do they start? That's a big question, but maybe going back to your roots a little bit, if you could share some good tips, that'd be great.
Okay, so they're starting a new home-based business. What do they mean
Yes.
by that?
Cynthia, do you want to?
Like it's out of their home?
I think so. Cynthia, do you want to pop in a little bit more details about that? Okay, well, okay, yes, from home. Yes,
from
so
home.
her own home. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's Cynthia, if it's you solo or if you've got a group of people involved in the business. Don't know what type of business it is. But no matter what, I always recommend starting with your vision and your why. So getting so clear, why are you doing this, right? Why are you starting the home-based business? Mm-hmm. And what is the thing that will keep you going in the business and not quitting, right, when it gets hard? That is what your why is. What's the thing that's going to keep you going when there's a global pandemic and everything is hard, right? And then visioning, there's lots of different ways and structures to do visioning, but getting really clear on like, what's the mission of your business? Who are you serving? You know, what problems are you solving? Those sorts of things before you try to put any systems in place.
That's great. That's great advice. And, you know, you wouldn't think about that in the very beginning, but framing it again from the very beginning seems so key and important. There's another interesting question. How can I reinforce staff confidence?
Mm-hmm. Oh, communication. Mm-hmm. Meeting with your staff. So sometimes, like when your team gets larger and larger and larger, it's hard as the owner to know everyone on your team or meet with everyone on your team. But if you have a smaller team, or the leaders on your team can do this, but it's important to meet with them and get to know them and have more casual meetings that aren't necessarily you coming in with an agenda or reviewing them or those sorts of things that are so formal, to just for them to understand that you are a human being and to understand the vision of the business, right? So that's the other piece is for staff confidence is having also structured ways to show your team what you're working on and what the vision of the business is. One way to do that is a yearly planning meeting or a team-wide yearly planning meeting or quarterly planning meeting for larger companies, where you're really showing like what happened this past year, what are we projecting for the next year, what are the goals, what are our core values, here's how we're doing that. And that's really important because employees will, you know, our brains like to make meaning of things. And so if they see something going on with the business, they're going to make up a story on why that's happening or what's important to you as the owner. And so it's important for you to share with them what that is, you know, what the reality of that is.
That's so true in any environment, right? Like in a big company setting, like where we have 300 people versus like even a small business, it's so important to have those things in place. And I love how you're doing that and integrating all of that. There's a very interesting high level question here that I see about how can I create income to pay the suggested salary? So I think it comes down to the salary that you had for different people. Maybe like some tips on how you thought through when you needed to add more headcount to your clinic. Is there anything you did special? Yeah.
So the biggest recommendation is the hybrid positions. So let's say you have an acupuncturist who would be a great leader. They want to be a leader on your team. They want to be the client care coordinator, right? So you could say, well, I could hire someone from the outside for $60,000 a year, client care coordinator, or my acupuncturist could still see 15 patients a week,
Mhm.
25 patients a week, whatever it is, half-time, part-time, and also be the client care coordinator. And that revenue pays for the salary or a good majority of the salary. And then you could hire an additional acupuncturist to make up the lost profit of that position. If that makes sense.
Oh,
So you sort of
totally.
replace that position, but then that support position, leadership position, is also revenue producing to at least pay for the salary. The other creative ways, especially in wellness environments,
Mhm.
is to ramp up the benefits, right? If you need to do a lower salary for someone, or maybe commission-based position, something like that, but you can also weave in more benefits with saying, okay, you receive one service a month, one massage a month from your team member, or
Mhm.
those sorts of things. And, whatever you're offering in your wellness space, you can incorporate that so that the benefits are, more appealing.
That's interesting. And that massage becomes like practice for that practitioner too. So
Yeah, and then your
goes both
massage
ways.
therapist gets paid. It's a win-win.
Mhm.
They get to know each other on a deeper level. Then they also learn, whatever provider's getting that massage every month, they're learning how to better refer to the massage therapist, and it all is a working system.
That's interesting. That's such a great idea. I would have never thought about that, but that's so cool. Can you speak more on the onboarding meeting with the leadership team that you have? Do you have a specific question you ask all the leaders or outcomes that you're looking for?
Mhm. So I'm curious if this person is wondering more about when I'm interviewing someone to join the leadership team, or or the meeting I was talking about where after we've hired a new employee, that someone from the leadership team is then interviewing them early on after they've onboarded. Yes. Okay. After hiring. So that's a great question. And if anyone wants actually an entire document of the questions we ask at that meeting, you can just email me, Kendall@wellnesscentercreators.com. I'll put it in the chat.
That's great. I think you're going to get a lot of people emailing you.
That's fine. Fine. Madison, my assistant, can help with that. I'm happy to send it out. We have a whole document of questions that get at, their level of happiness in the job so far, and is this their dream job, scale 1 to 10? Why or why not? What would they change about it? What do they see themselves doing in 5 years? What's who on the team is most trusted, who's their most trusted colleague at this point, things like that. So I'm happy to share that.
Okay, great. So yeah, everybody, don't forget to post your email in there and they'll get it out to you. It's so interesting, Kendall. I'm seeing a lot about compensation and the challenges of, when and how to do compensation increases. So this is another question. With a position that is pretty stagnant and does not grow that much, does not pose much growth, how much of a raise or steps or raises would you recommend? And they're saying that we've been having difficulty determining what and when raises are necessary when positionings aren't really changing that much,
Yeah.
and that the employee does not really want to grow and have expand and have more responsibility.
Yeah. Well, there's a few parts to that question. So if the employee does not want to grow or have more responsibility, that's one thing. That's one issue aside over here. Because if you want the position to grow and that person to have more responsibility, that's something to consider and work out with that employee. As far as raises, at the end of the day, if you can find your way into a system where it's more on a calendar year and having it be more structured to say every January or every September or whatever it is, that everyone's getting a cost of living raise, and then additional raises, they're eligible for additional raises based on X, Y, and Z categories, right? Performance, seniority, and how, skill development or something like that. continuing education or whatever it is, bringing new creative ideas to the team. And then so that they know how they can earn more.
Mhm.
And part of that is encouraging them to find ways to bring more revenue to the company, and they
Oh,
can
that's so great.
be rewarded for that.
Right. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Okay, there's another one. I'm wondering the best ideas for structuring a business organization chart when there are so many different roles within a small business that doesn't really overlap.
Yes. Like even our organizational chart is like, it's like 2 levels, right? It's a small business, and like one level is like this long, just all flat.
Right.
I think that's okay, right? I think it can be customized to you, and even if you're doing it handwritten or on the computer, just making notes for you to understand, like, how is that person's role different from this person's role, even though they might be on the same level of the organizational chart, right?
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I'm looking at some more questions here. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, Zora. She's asked a few questions already, but what metrics are you using are used to gauge success for your clinic?
So a few things. Like per provider, right? If we have providers that are seeing clients and those are revenue producing positions, we would look at in Jane, we would use the reports. We use the Jane reports for a lot of things actually to measure success.
Awesome. Yeah.
So the client retention, there's a report where you can see for each provider, how many new clients have they seen in the past 6 months or whatever time frame, how many of those people returned, and what's their retention. So reports like that, of course, profit and loss and all of those normal sort of metrics. And then we're also gauging success to us, from a non-financial perspective. So, team morale and motivation and happiness and those sorts of things that we measure. New team members, we do reviews with them at 3 months, 6 months, and then yearly. And then we also have informal meetings. And so we're constantly, it's more of a subjective measurement, but we also use that. Yep.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. There's some interesting questions about like teams, because I think a lot of people work alternative shifts and they don't necessarily see each other every day. And so there's a good question from, I think this is from AccuWork Acupuncture Studio. And it says, how do you coordinate with a team who does not work every day together? For example, I have 4 practitioners who work alternative days.
Yes, it's a great question. It's very common in clinics, and it's the reason why we have a mandatory weekly meeting for all staff. Because we can't all be here at the same time, and we have our people fighting over, time in the offices. So whenever we hire someone on, it's been from day one of our clinic, and it's something that through my internships in working in wellness centers and grad school, realizing that the weekly meeting is vital. If you're having a collaborative team, it's absolutely vital. And so we started that from day one, and it's been the same day and the same time since 2016, every week. And I sit in those meetings every week and I realize we would not be able to do half of the stuff we are doing at our clinic or for our clients if we did not have those meetings. And it's a time for the providers to know each other and relate to each other. And yes, the weekly meeting is paid time. The employees are paid to be there.
Right. Great. Okay. So I am just getting a ping that we are at time. Oh my gosh, there's so many interesting questions here. I regret that we can't answer all of these, but there's some questions around marketing too. And I know everybody's so excited to, pose these questions to you. So maybe everybody, if you could go into Kendall's site, and she said that she's going to answer them there too. We are taking all of the questions. Yeah,
if you go to the site, become a member, it's free. I will answer all the questions there. Also, join the private Facebook group. It should be on the last slide. It's called Wellness Center Creators Private Group on Facebook. Join that group. I think what I might do is just do a video answering the rest of the questions too, and I can put that in the private group.
Oh, that's great.
Go to both of those places and you'll have your question answered somehow.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I just want everybody to also know that the resource from Kendall's session have been posted in the lobby chat for this session. So you can find the session chats by clicking on the above main lobby chat area. So if you go there and then scroll down for the session that you're looking for, you can see all of the things that are being shared there too as well. And as always, please feel free to reach out to Jane as well if you have any questions. But oh my gosh, Kendall, thank you so much. This was such a great session. I learned so much about how clinics are run too. And I really appreciate your time today. And I hope everybody enjoyed their time here. Thank you for all the amazing questions.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Great. Okay, we're day 2, but day 1. Hope to see you more in other sessions. Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.